lightning. He's expected now in Berlin with us to talk about it. Our German journalist and author Ulrike Kollermann. Your next book will be about French nuclear policy here.
Right.
Civil nuclear policy, as it were. Also with us, Jérôme Guedj of the Socialist Party. He's president of the Paris Area Essonne Regional Council. And Member of Parliament Jacques Millard of the Conservative UMP Party. In fact, before the break, we were discussing the new Prime Minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault, who has he phoned you? You get cabinet post coming up for you, Jérôme Guedj?
I've cut my phone, so okay. I don't know. it's quite risky.
But I know a lot who are just
they have 2 or 3 phones, probably.
Hollande's election news, by the way, on a much more serious topic, greeted with economic news this Tuesday. French growth in the first quarter of this year, flat, 0.0%, while German growth rose by 0.5 percentage point. What you're looking at there is a chart where if you start the clock on growth in 2008, when the crisis began in earnest, you see France still above the Eurozone average in what's definitely becoming a 2-speed Europe. And that's something that's high on everyone's mind going into that meeting between François Hollande and Angela Merkel. The François Hollande who promised growth on the campaign trail, and ahead of this meeting in Berlin, the changing of the guard, not just in France, but also in Greece. And that's high on everyone's mind. You can take a look, for instance, at Heng's cartoon for Singapore leading daily newspaper Lian Xiaobo a few days ago. There you see Hollande and angry Greeks charging into a meeting where Angela Merkel has the austerity pact on the table there. And Ulrike Kollermann, when you look at images like that one, there is everyone has talked about how it's going to be a get acquainted session. You said in the first part, they probably have a lot in common personally. But are we headed for a real fight?
I think what will happen is Hollande asked already to have an audit of the public finances, and this will, by coincidence, happen after the elections. And he might very well use that as a pretext and say, oh, I'm sorry, it's worse than we thought, and now we have to make some cuts. So this is a very probable way of adapting to reality once the elections are over.
And in other words, selling to French voters who voted for him that they're going to have to tighten their belts.
Yeah, but it will be difficult because no one prepared them for that. And the French are very quick out in the streets. As soon as there are some sunshine, there are demonstrations. It's a bit exaggerated.
Do you see the same man who in his inauguration speech promised a greater role for trade unions, then coming back and talking about belt tightening after the parliamentary elections?
Today the weather was quite aggressive against François Hollande.
So good, yes.
Not so good. But I'm sure the good days are coming. Not good days of because things in crisis is still here. But we have to be quite confident. You've just said that it will be not so difficult to find a kind of compromise with Angela Merkel, and I'm sure things are possible in the today or probably the next week during the European summit. For sure, we will have to find resources to finance the François Hollande program, but we have not to forget that most of the resources are coming from the political choices that are going to be made during the summer with the fiscal law, especially to cut taxes.
No, to increase taxes.
Yes,
you're not going to cut taxes.
Yes, you're right. No, it's a
taxes.
mistake. It's an English mistake to cut the
expenses.
Not the expenses, the gift taxes that was made during the last 5 years by Nicolas
we are no more in
Sarkozy.
The campaign. Come back to the reality.
Yes,
please.
but the reality will be, and it's in the François Hollande program.
Yes,
we have 2, 3, 4, 5 billion euros that can be found immediately until the end of the year.
The deficit is 100.
Yes, but at the same time, it will be reoriented. For instance, to create the new jobs in public schools. That's quite
on public
important.
Expenses. Thank you.
It will be reoriented among the French budget, At the same time, we will have to negotiate, to reorient and to reorient European recovery efforts toward more growth instead of the austerity that was proposed by Angela Merkel. Indeed, during this political campaign, François Hollande has criticized, the German government for insisting too rigidly on austerity. So we will have to find a balance between austerity and growth. I'm not expecting that Angela Merkel will accept everything, but it's impossible for her to. She cannot override the will of the French people, and she knows that. Especially because 2 days ago she was defeated in local election in Germany, and she has to understand the French expectation and also the German expectation.
François Hollande, in his inaugural speech, spelled out the agenda on that issue of growth earlier in the day.
Bien des peuples, et d'abord en Europe, nous attendent
are
et nous
watching
regardent.
and waiting for us.
Pour surmonter la crise,
In order to overcome the crisis that is upon
elle a
us,
besoin de projets,
Europe needs
elle
projects,
a besoin de
it
solidarité,
needs solidarity,
elle a besoin de
it needs
croissance.
growth.
À nos partenaires,
I will propose to our partners a new pact
qui alliera
which
la
will bring
réduction
together the
nécessaire
necessary
des
reduction of
dettes
public debt
avec
and the
l'indispensable
indispensable stimulus for the
de
economy.
l'économie.
Jacques Miat, your reaction to that?
These are words and words. It's very easy to, to see that that Europe, not only France, is in a deadlock situation. And when you say, Madame, that we'll come to a compromise, I tell you that the gap is much larger than the Rhine. And it will be very difficult because we are in two different ways to look at the crisis. First, the Germans have imposed with the central bank strict austerity, which lead to a drama like Greece, it will come to Spain, etc. If we don't change of monetary policy, this Europe is dead. I tell you frankly, this Europe is dead. So there is no way to find a solution, because I agree with Hollande when he said we need growth. We need growth, but how to create growth? This is the point. Is it through the loans through this European Investing Bank? That won't work enough because that's very marginal. The only way to do it is, as I said, and I have written it, is to monetize, the debts, like the quantitative easing, like the Americans do, and like the English do. If we don't do that, because that's exactly contrary to what the Germans believe, and I am sure that it will do not last. Why? Because the pressure of the streets will come up. Don't forget that we are democratic states, you and we, and that we will have to respond to something which will become every day unbearable.
All right,
so we don't change that. I don't give a penny, as I said already here, on this Eurozone.
I agree with Mr. Mia. If we don't change things, if we keep on austerity,
Yes,
this Europe will be dead.
All right, but let's. There's a bit of confusion over what the Germans really think.
Yeah.
On the one hand, there were regional elections this weekend, and maybe a lot of them were on regional issues. But it was the left and the Greens that did well in it. On the other hand, Angela Merkel herself is still very popular in Germany, and a lot of people think that the Germans should not. A lot of Germans, it seems, don't want to pay for any kind of spending plan.
Absolutely. And the word growth is very popular in German now as well. So there is some tendency that there might be another growth pact. I think there's room for compromise. The big question is, what does growth mean, and how to finance growth? And if it's only by spending, then it's not sustainable. Then there will be just a straw fire. And this is what I think Merkel wants to avoid. Sure, there can be a straw fire and growth can happen if you spend more, but you have to finance it. And one problem in Hollande's program is also that he's based on very optimistic figures, and they are already corrected. They were not true, his expectations. So he needs to finance this program.
All right, and Jacques Mial saying the gap between France and Germany much larger than the Rhine. Earlier, when she spoke to France 24's Marcus Carlson, the IMF managing director, Christine Lagarde played down that divide.
If you ask them deep down, they probably both understand that there has to be a reconciliation between the two, and austerity and growth are not mutually exclusive, and they need to be addressed together jointly.
All right, so that's the look in from Christine Lagarde. And we're getting similar noises, by the way, from the Christian Democrats themselves ahead of, again, that meeting that we're waiting for in Berlin.
It's important that we study each other's proposals, but I'm sure that we will be able to agree on a common Franco-German approach by the end of June at the latest. We share an interest in seeing not only the ratification of the fiscal pact with a broad consensus, but also ensuring the stability of the Eurozone.
Jacques Mial.
Well, it's very easy to understand, you know. The Germans have understood that if there are more spending, if we create the Eurobonds, they will pay. And that they don't want, because they know that to maintain the zone, they will have to transfer to Greece, to Italy, to Spain, 4% of their national product. This is more costly than the reunification of Germany. So this is the hard core of the system. So that means if we don't change the policy, that means the monetary policy, that means to create directly aids from the central bank to the states, you will have dividing economies in Europe, and then it will be unsustainable.
Financial Times, in an editorial this Tuesday, says Germany ready to step up on spending and investment step up spending on investment and imports will be more important to Europe's recovery than either the fiscal treaty or the growth fact. Are Germans ready for that?
I'm not sure. Probably there is things are shifting in Germany, and the vote in North Rhine-Westphalia also could be interpreted as a vote against this austerity policy. So I think the Germans are hesitating. It's maybe also in their nature that they don't see spending as the way to create growth. But seeing the French elections and having all this discussion about growth, there might be a shift in the opinion coming up.
Jérôme Gage?
I think that one of the necessary evolution in the next months, and maybe with the renegotiation of the treaty, because we will have to overcome this difficulty. François Hollande said, "I've got a popular mandate to ask for the renegotiation of the fiscal treaty." Will be, and I agree again with Mr. Miar, will be to press for the European Central Bank to lend directly to states, because if we don't monetarize part of the debt, we will be in this very dangerous situation for the European Union, with a lack of confidence between states, and the idea that mutualization and the political project based on economic mutualization is a failure.
We're watching, I'm just going to interrupt you to tell you that we're watching live images. François Hollande arriving in Berlin.
And no kiss.
And no kiss.
I agree, there's no necessity to kiss.
And no baisement also.
That's true.
Kiss the hand, dignity
Jacques
of
Chirac
power.
would kiss the hand,
Yes.
the French president. So it was a handshake this time. Ulrike Kollermann, your thoughts on the body language there?
I think they have a lot in common. They just look like they know each other already. It's weird, but you don't have these awkward moments
Pentecost is next day, not yet.
when you compare with Sarkozy. It looks much more natural. I think they will create mutual confidence quite soon.
Jacques Mial, a question on this point, and to pick up on what Jérôme Gage was just saying about the growth issue. A lot of people in Washington are rooting for the French to push the Germans on this one.
Yeah, because, the point is that as the entire Eurozone is in, depressing, It's also very bad for English economy, for the American economy, because we are all together in the same boat through the trade, So it's very important that this zone change its policy. I am pretty sure that this kind of austerity has created the difficulties that we have today in Greece, Spain, etc., etc. So I think it won't last very long.
Jérôme Gage?
Yes, I agree. I agree again. I think that even if we have to be very aware on this very specific momentum, because we have only 2 or 3 months, to give signs
To the markets.
To the markets, it will be, and I don't know exactly when will take place the next election in Greece, but we will also have to know if they at least manage to find a positive issue. But François Hollande has managed to provoke this debate among the European leaders. When you see the recent declaration of the Austrian Chancellor, the declaration of Mario Draghi,
the European Central Bank.
The European Central Bank. You understand that even Angela Merkel will have to accept this evolution, and I say again that even to this on public opinion in the next month, don't forget that in next autumn 2013 she will have to face general election. She knows that during the last months, we, the Socialist Party, we have worked a lot with Sigmar Gabriel and the leaders of the SPD, and we have noticed that even our friend of the SPD, that in the past was quite far from our own position among the Socialist Party, we have managed in the last months to build a common position. So if she doesn't want to produce, but I expect the victory of the SPD next year in Germany. But if she doesn't want to provoke a gap on this subject in Germany, she will have to move.
Ulrike Kolderman, do you agree?
Yeah, she will have to move because it's not yet ratified in Germany. It's not through Parliament,
and that vote comes up before July.
Exactly, she does need the votes of the SPD, so she's forced to make some moves. But you have still to make a difference between the different propositions of Hollande. Some of them are just old propositions picked from the European Commission, and there's definitely room for compromise. The larger things about the role of the European Central Bank, I think that's much more tricky, and there's much more.
Even the German socialists are opposed to that, and never forget
not
that.
So much.
No. You have to realize, Jérôme, that in fact the entire German folk, people, is very strict on this question because they fear inflation, which will not happen. And secondly, never forget also that Draghi, the central bank system, is absolutely opposed to that, and we will have to almost change the treaty. So it's a hard tough. But if we don't do it, I say very bluntly that it will be very difficult for
also
Eurozone.
that one day or another we will have to change this treaty.
Yeah, no. The entire system, the entire
system, yes.
Yeah, but you don't change the treaty every time there's an election in one country.
That's why I am very pessimistic on the future of the Eurozone. I tell you frankly, I think that this system has shown that it doesn't work, and I'm pretty sure that one day or the other we will collectively look at this baby and say it's dead.
That's not what the leadership of your party says.
Yeah, I know. Oh, well, I'm going to tell you very clearly that I have said that to all my friends in my party, that they make a mistake by this system. I've said it to Nicolas Sarkozy 4 months ago, very directly. I say, never forget, this is not working and it will not work. And every day, I tell you frankly, in the history of currencies, there is no single currency which will survive on diverting economies. That never exists.
So you are supporting for more federalism
no,
in a kind of way for all sovereignists like you?
No, that doesn't solve. You make a big mistake. That's a question of governance. The point is that if you don't pay for the poor, that means if you don't transfer every day every year more than 4% of your national product to Greece, Spain, it won't work. The same thing that it is working in France to where the Corrèze or La Lozère. Paris is paying for the poor department in this country, and if we don't have the same system at the European level, it won't work.
Yes, that's why we need a kind of social and fiscal harmonization among Europe.
That's a long term.
Yes,
and
but
God
it
knows
must
when.
be the
No.
goal. Yes, for
That's
sure.
utopia. And reality is today that Mr. Hollande has a hot potato in his hands and he will burn himself.
All right, François Hollande, who has landed safely second time round
I
in
don't.
Berlin after his first plane was initially diverted back to Paris after being hit by lightning. It's been a long day for François Hollande, who also got soaked. I hope he changed his suit in the interim during his inauguration day outings. And the first test, of course, of all of this could come very soon indeed. Hollande, Merkel, the rest of the world waiting on Greece. You've been mentioning it. We know there's an impasse there. Voters, in all likelihood, to return to the polls. Faith in the Eurozone's firewall wavering. Many uneasy about heading into uncharted territory and letting the Greeks go from the euro. Many, but not many in Germany, it seems.
The finance ministers are able to count to three. They know that you can't rush the decision and say the Greeks are leaving the Eurozone. It's important to be aware of the possible repercussions and to take preventive measures. They have to buy some time. There'll have to be lots of talks with Hollande, Merkel and the other heads of government, and then, in the early autumn, they'll be prepared to say, now we can let the Greeks go in a controlled fashion and under a mutual agreement.
When you hear that German banker, when you hear Christine Lagarde, who told France 24 earlier that basically if the Greek politicians don't get their act together, there will be an exit from the euro. Is this all a bargaining position, or is this all really happening, Jérôme Guedj?
I can't imagine that when I say we, I mean the European lovers, those who think that it's the big deal of the early century that we could let the Greece leave the Eurozone or the European Union. So I'm quite faithful and optimistic on the way that we will manage to overcome this difficulty by the signal, by the sign that will be given after the next meeting on Brussels on the European Council. So I can't imagine that it happens, but at the same time, I can't imagine that things go on this way. So it's probably the first and immediate difficulty for both of them.
Assuming the Greeks form a government, of course.
As soon as but in a way, this period of without government in Greece, it's I could say it's much better that to have a government right now. In a way, just to make other European leaders converging their position.
First of all, I would say that nobody can, let's say, put the Greek out of the Eurozone. It doesn't work this way. There is no legal way to do it. The only way is that, of course, the Greeks say, okay, we go. That's the only way.
But this is uncharted territory. So is there such a thing as an orderly exit?
No. Well, they can do another thing. They can go to the Central Bank of Greece and say, now you give us direct aid. If you don't do that, we recruitize you, and you do that. And that's some things that may happen. That means, well, of course, you forget about Central Bank. You are the Central Bank of Greece. You help us directly by creating money. And that's something that may happen.
Ulrike Kornemann?
I think we have to look at the big context. It's definitely a very, very big crisis with Greek. But if you put it into the context of the European integration, and if you think that Hollande is a spiritual son of Jacques Delors and all the political process that took us so far to create this European Union, no one can really have an interest to kick out the Greeks.
Europe will be different. When I hear that, it's like the Soviet Union that was bringing peace, growth, etc. I'm sorry. I tell you, Europe will survive any kind of euro. So there is no problem. We are friends. You have become a very big democratic state. We exchange culture. it's only tools. Those are tools. If the tool doesn't work, we change tools.
But there are other tools. I mean, the Greeks can reform, and it's not the only way that
what do they sell?
Olives
and their own tourism. You have the Ruhrgebiet, you have a big machinery, industrial machinery. It will work when you will put the Ruhr in the Peloponnese country or in the Costa del Sol. Then you will have economic matching. You cannot have a horse which runs very quickly with a donkey behind.
All right.
I think that's a very simplistic approach.
No. This is the one. This is the one. And look what is happening. It happened everywhere, this kind of dream, which becomes a nightmare.
I'm not sure it's under those terms, but we kind of get a feeling for what the conversation will at least center on when they do sit down to dinner in Berlin between François Hollande on his first day on the job, his first ever meeting with Angela Merkel. I want to thank you, Jérôme Gage. I also want to thank you for being with us, Ulrike Kollermann and Jacques Millard. Thank you for being with us here in this extended edition of the France 24 debate. Laura Baines will continue to cover that meeting in Berlin when we return. Stay with us.